Today, I'll be continuing with my schedule discussion and point spread prediction videos. Today, I'll be doing Pittsburgh. So it was obvious that Pittsburgh was just an awful football team last year. And they really fell off fast because not that long ago in 2021, Pittsburgh actually won the ACC in 11 games. And in 2022, they had another good year, winning 9 games. But then in 2023, they went down a whole lot, losing 9 games and only winning 3 games, and going 2-6 in the terrible ACC conference. And this year, I think they're going to be bad again. They recruit terribly, and they didn't do well at all in the portal either. And their roster is just awful, to be honest. Mm, and on the schedule, they didn't get it the best with the non-conference. The non-conference schedule is their first 4 games there. Uh, so they do get 2 games that are pretty much for sure wins for them against Kent State and Youngstown State. But they have 2 Power 4 opponents in the non-conference, and one of them is Cincinnati, which I know they're terrible too, but Pittsburgh was even more awful last year and lost to Cincinnati, and they do have to play them there. Now, Cincinnati is not a tough place to play at all, but still, uh, I think Cincinnati has a good chance to beat them 2 years in a row. And then West Virginia, they returned 70% of their production from a team that won 9 games last year. And I know I didn't put them in my top 25, but I had thought about it, and they would be number 26 to me right now. And I think they have a really good chance to finish in the top 25 this year. And I know they weren't in the AP top 25 last year, but I actually think they were a top 25 team. So I don't think Pitt has much of a chance to beat West Virginia. And then they start their conference schedule after getting a week off. Mm, Not really the best time for that, mm, because it comes after uh, a given win against Youngstown State. And the conference schedule is better. They got it pretty easy. They do have to play Clemson, but they don't have to play Florida State or Miami. Those may be the 2 best teams in the ACC this year, and they also avoid Virginia Tech, who is probably going to be one of the ACC's best teams. North Carolina on the road. Uh, I think it's an unlikely win for Pittsburgh. North Carolina, his defense has been pretty bad the last couple of years, and their offense isn't going to be as good this year. But I still think that that transfer quarterback that uh, North Carolina brought in from Texas A&M is better than what Pittsburgh is going to have at quarterback. I still think that North Carolina's roster overall is better than Pittsburgh's. Pittsburgh's offense was horrible last year. They averaged just 20.2 points per game, and their run game was awful, one of the worst in the country. They barely averaged 100 rushing yards a game, and their defense was bad too, giving up 27.3 points per game on average. So it's hard to expect that Pittsburgh is going to win any of these conference games. Now, I think they'll probably win 1 or 2 of them just because uh, of there's so many of them, and the ACC's awful. Uh, so then California, this is one that they could win because Cal is terrible too, and it's nice to get that kind of game at home, especially with it being California because of the distance between the two places. And then take a week off before playing Syracuse at home. Another one that they'll have a decent chance in. I think Syracuse is probably better than California. And they've got, I think, a better roster than Pittsburgh does. But there's not too much of a difference between the two, I don't think, to where Pittsburgh couldn't win it. And then SMU on the road, uh, unlikely win to me. Uh, of course, not as sure because SMU is coming from the uh, group of five level into the ACC. But SMU has got quite a bit more talent on their roster than Pittsburgh does. Mm, so Virginia next. This is one that uh, I would actually pick Pittsburgh in if I was doing predictions right now, which those are coming soon. Virginia's probably even worse than Pittsburgh, and uh, they do get that one at home. So that's another one that it's good to have at home. But all three of those, California, Syracuse, and Virginia, are games that Pittsburgh will need to uh, get if they're going to go to a bowl game this year. And then Clemson at home. I don't think that's going to do them any good getting that one at home. Pittsburgh does have a horrible home field advantage, and Clemson is nowhere close to what they used to be, but they've still got so much more talent on their roster, especially defensively, than Pittsburgh does. So if Clemson loses this one, that's probably it for Dabo Swinney. And then Louisville on the road next. So Pittsburgh actually somehow was able to beat Louisville last year when Louisville went to the ACC championship. But that was their only good win last year. And I think it's unlikely that they beat them again. Louisville has uh, put a lot of talent through the transfer portal on their roster. They've got a lot more than Pittsburgh does uh, with talent, and that's not an easy place to play either at Louisville. And then on the road at Boston College, so that's not really nice having to play two road games in a row to end the season, but it is good news that the second one's Boston College, that, like with Pittsburgh, has no home field advantage anyway, and is also a terrible team like Pittsburgh. So I'd say 50-50 with that one right now. So now I'll move on to the point spread prediction. So games in the green are games where I think Pittsburgh will be favored by a blowout, 20 or more points, and there's two of those, Kent State and Youngstown State. Games in the gray are games where I think Pitt will be an underdog by about a field goal, 1 to 5 points, and there's two of those. Cincinnati and Boston College games in the uh, pink are games where I think Pittsburgh will be a favorite by about a field goal. And there's three of those, Cal, Syracuse, and Virginia. Games in the yellow are games where I think Pittsburgh will be an underdog by about a touchdown, 6 to 9 points. And there's four of those, West Virginia, North Carolina, SMU, and Louisville. Games in the Oranger games where I think that Pittsburgh will be an underdog by double digits, but not a blowout, 10 to 19 points. And there's one of those, Clemson. So Kent State, Pittsburgh should be favored by like 3 touchdowns in that game. And then Youngstown State, they should be favored in that one by like 30 points. And Cincinnati, because it's a road game, I think they'll be the favorite in that one by a point or two. And then the same with Boston College. I think they'll be favored over Pitt by a point or two because they have the home field advantage. Uh, and then West Virginia, I think the spread in that one will be about 8 points. And then North Carolina, I think it'll be about 6 points. I would have that in the gray if it was a home game. And the same with SMU. I think the spread will be about 6 points. And it'd be a great game at home. And then Louisville, I think they'll be favored by about 7 over Pittsburgh. Mm, uh, and California, mm, I think Pittsburgh will be favored in that by uh, mm, probably a couple of points mm, because mm, they have home field advantage, maybe like 2 points. And then Virginia, I think Pitt will be favored in that one by about 3. And then Syracuse, I think that Pittsburgh will be favored maybe by a point because it's at home, but they'd for sure be an underdog to Syracuse on the road. And then Clemson, I think they'll be favored by like 2 touchdowns over Pittsburgh, about 14 points. And so I think they'll have to pull at least one upset to get to a bowl game, which I won't say it's impossible, but I think it's unlikely right now. But that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.